Hello and welcome. I'm Katrina Pratt Roebuck, and I am the founder and CEO of Uplifme. And Uplifme is a resource site sharing information on resources across the country that addresses social determinants of health. So today I have with me Dr. Shirlana Dash, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Self Incorporated, as well as a commissioner on the Philadelphia Commission for Women. So Dr. Dash, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Dash, can you start by telling us what Self Incorporated does and who you serve, please?
Thank you. By all means, I am honored to talk about that. Self Incorporated is the largest provider of emergency housing services for single individuals in the city of Philadelphia. Self has been in existence for over 40 years.
Mhm.
And who do we serve? We serve single men and women, primarily men, and we provide housing to those who are in need. We also have affordable housing through our Self Plus Cooperative program, as well as a permanent supportive housing program and a transitional housing program for youth. So Self provides housing for those who are dealing with housing instability and housing insecurity. That is who we are, what we do. We have 5 shelters and 5 programs in the city of Philadelphia.
So, that is wonderful. I've worked for the shelter system for about 11 years, and I had no idea that expanded in the way that it has. So, can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned that there's youth housing. Can you talk a little bit about the youth housing that you have?
Yes. So when I came to Self, I come from a history of child welfare.
Mhm.
So people in shelter services, the shelter serve people from 18 to 70. But we know that developmentally, that youth have a different need, that
Mhm.
18 and 25-year-old bracket are still developing and growing. So
Mhm.
coming from child welfare, one of the things when I was interviewed by the board, they said, what is it you want to work on? I said, youth homelessness,
Mhm.
housing insecurity, and young people. I worked in a system where there were challenges with young people. The system can help you, but at a certain age, you age out. And so then you need more resources and support. And so I identified firsthand that was a challenge. So when I got here, 3 weeks after I started,
Mhm.
there was a conference being held at the mayor's office, and there was an announcement that the city was awarded $8.9 million for youth homelessness and housing. I
Mhm.
came back and said to the team, we're going to get funded. So they said, okay, Dr. Dash. I said, so what we began to do, we began to have a roundtable. We reached out to all of our shelter locations and asked for young people up to age 30 to come and sit down with us and talk about what are the things you need, or what are the things you would have needed that may have kept you from being in the shelter system. Let's talk about a program. So we sat down and we began to work for 5 months developing a program. The actual participants, along with staff, we sat down, I was in the room, and we came together every 2 weeks. And we actually needed space. My brother opened his church and he said, come and have a meeting. And we literally came and sat down for hours. We buy lunch, we buy breakfast. And we began to talk about what this program would be. So we got to the end of developing the program. It was time for the grant submission. And people said, well, who inspired you? I said, my mother. Well, interesting, my brother and I had a conversation before, my brother, Carl. And one of the things we talked about, if you could honor mommy or would do some of the things, what would you do? I said, I open a program in her honor. Because I come from child welfare. So
Right.
I'd worked for decades working with young people in the system. So
Right.
when the young people asked me, well, who inspired you? I said, my mother. They said, what was her name? We were trying to come up with a name. I said, Miss Barbara.
Mm.
It should be Miss Barbara's house. So
Oh,
Self
wow.
applied for funding for Miss Barbara's house. And we got funded for Miss Barbara's house and Lyft. And Miss Barbara's house is a transitional housing program for young people 18 to 24. And then there's a Lyft component, leading youth for permanent housing tomorrow. The Lyft
Mhm.
component is for young people 18 to 24, and we provide them with apartment units. In the community, we have up to 15 apartments we can house them in. But more than housing, providing supportive services to
Mhm.
help them with financial literacy, to help them with employment readiness, to help them with apprenticeship programs. We were intentional about creating something that was unique and different, but also we created things such as a peer council that they would sit down, that we actually created something where we have Sunday dinners. And somebody's like, Sunday dinner, we talk to them about what do you need? While this is not um, a traditional home, we want it to be home. And so one of the things about Miss Barbara House that was important to me, when we talked about creating it, they asked me, what is it that you want? I said, what I want is a safe place, but I want some place where our young people can dream again.
Mhm.
They looked at me, they said, dream. I say, young people aren't taught to dream anymore. I say, I need young people to be at a place where it's safe, but in that safety, they understand that it's okay to dream and pursue your dreams. And so I wanted Miss Barbara's house to be just that.
Mhm.
Mommy took care of the community. Mommy fed everybody. When people ask me, why do I serve like I do? Because mommy served. Mommy always fed people. Mommy always cooked for people. Mommy took care of people. So when you open Miss Barbara's house, it was to pay honor to someone who had taken care of the community. And I wanted it to be a home where young people could dream and pursue their dreams and their goals and know that it's okay to strive for something greater. So that's one of the things we did when I talk about youth. So in that, we also developed a youth council. We have a youth advisory board where we meet within all of our shelters with youth talking about some of the things that are needed and other programs we can develop to kind of support them now, but to create other ways that we can support and provide separate housing. And separate housing, because 18 to 24, they're still developing. There's still needs that that 18 to 24-year-old has that their 40-year-old doesn't have.
Mhm.
So it's some foundational supports they want to provide. So that's when we talk about youth housing, we're being intentional that coming from child welfare, one of the things that I've been intentional about is working with our team to create this youth service division. Because again, the needs for young people are different. And studies have shown that if you can help take a young person and get them early on in
Mhm.
life for whatever it is, that you can stop the cycle.
Mhm.
Stop the cycle of violence, stop the cycle of homelessness.
Mhm.
So we're looking at ways that we can help develop them now to help stop that cycle so they don't continuously show up in our shelter system.
So that's beautiful. And I think that a number of the things you said were so important. You sat down with folks and asked them what they wanted, asked them what would work for them, and took that time to be diligent around meeting those needs. I also think that it's amazing and wonderful that you didn't just create a program, you were seeking to create a space that was a home, right? And so I think that a lot of times when folks are falling into safety net systems, unfortunately, they're in survival mode. Right. And so it sounds like you've created a place where people can come out of that survival mode and do better for themselves because they have the space and the bandwidth, right, to then think about better things for their lives. So thank you for sharing that detail of it. And how many spots are in Miss Barbara's house? Is it housing slots or how does that work?
So Miss Barbara's house, so there are two components. Miss Barbara's house is a transitional housing program.
Okay.
On site, there's 6 individual units,
Okay.
but then we have 12 apartments in the community where
Okay.
young people are housed. Based on when they come and what their assessment says, the level of support they need,
Mm-hmm.
some young people need greater support. So the housing setting, Miss Barbara's house, provides a different level of support, like a higher level of support than the independent part of Lyft. Now, even with both parts, we still have a housing navigator, a case manager that works with them, but it's a different level of need. So
Mm-hmm.
based on the assessment, that's how they're placed. But
Okay.
all together, Miss Barbara's house and Lyft houses 18 young people.
Okay, that's fabulous. And I really think that it's important also to note that you came from city government and went into a nonprofit and leveraged that experience. And I think that that's wonderful. I think that when that happens, people really have a comprehensive view about what's needed for the system. So I appreciate hearing more about how you've leveraged your experience. Can you talk to me a little bit about how people access the services that Self provides?
So Self, we are a provider. We're funded through the city of Philadelphia.
Mhm.
So for people to access Self, they come through the city's clearinghouse. They're registered through either Apple Tree or Roosevelt,
Roosevelt
actually,
Darby.
Darby said, yep, they actually registered through there and
Mhm.
they come to us. So all of our services, our participants are served through there. We also have Mike Henson Resource Center where we have a day program. If
Mm.
people need support. Now for Mike Henson, you do not have to be registered through either one of those places. If you want to come in and you're down on your luck, you need to do your laundry, take a shower, use
Mm.
our computer lab, you can go
Mm.
to the day program and get
Okay,
resources there.
okay.
But then after hours at 3 o'clock, we have our night by night placement at the same location where you then come to get placed for shelter. So
Okay.
that is how you access our services. We also are part of the outreach team at the city.
Mhm,
And,
mhm,
we work on the streets and one of our areas is Center City. And that's
mm,
our primary area. And people go out and work with you to see if you'd like to get in shelter, get in housing. And I told my team when I first got here, the team got tired of me calling them. I would call like, hi, I see somebody in the street. They're like, Dr. Dash. Okay.
Mhm,
Like I would call the outreach team. I would call them on their phone. Like, hi, I see somebody sitting outside.
mhm,
He's on
mhm.
my way to the office. And they're like, okay, Dr. Dash. And they didn't say anything. They would go out. And even today at lunch, I had a conversation with my outreach. And I said, there's a young lady. He gave me her name. I
Mhm.
said, well, there's a young man. He gave me his name. He said, Dr. Dash, we've talked to them. And so I would do that. I would call. And so I had to stop doing that all the time. I would just kind of talk to my team because if I would see someone in Center City,
Yeah.
I would call them and say, hey, can you go out? And they're like, we are out. We are
Mhm.
talking to them, but I would see them and want to make sure they had support. So in order to access our services, you can go through OHS, through either of the sites we mentioned and get placed with us.
Okay, that's great. So in terms of the work that you do, like I said earlier, I said that, I thought that Self primarily focused on shelter. So was really surprised and happy to hear about the expansion of the work of Self over the years. Can you talk about something that maybe perhaps people don't know about Self that would be interesting for folks to know?
Well, we also have a program we partner with another city organization, entity. We have a Self Plus Cooperative where we house families and individuals, and that is a permanent supportive housing program.
Okay.
We have 35 scattered houses throughout the city, and we house people in our Self Plus Cooperative, and we have 14 family units, and the other 21 units are shared housing units.
Okay.
So that's something else that Self does. In addition to, we have a food cupboard that we do
Wow.
twice a week out
Huh,
of Otley House on 69th Street. So
really?
those are some of the other things, yes, that Self Incorporated does. So Self has expanded a lot through the last few years um,
Yeah.
under my predecessor. And he was diligent working with the city to ensure that we had comprehensive services to
Mhm.
support as many people as we could in need. One of the things that we will be doing, since I've been here, we opened Miss Barbara's House on Lift, but in July, we got funded to open Uber. And that's 30 more permanent supportive housing units for those who have been impacted specifically by domestic violence. So Self is looking for, that's another way in which we're going to serve the community. So
You've really
that's
expanded
something
the
to keep in
footprint.
mind.
Yeah, you've really expanded the footprint, youth, domestic violence, and family. So that's really impressive that you
Well,
guys are
it's my
serving.
history. I also have a history of working in domestic violence.
Okay.
So when we look at opportunities to serve and help other people, someone said one day, "You're changing the mission." I said, "I'm expanding the scope of how we serve people. We're working with those who are dealing with housing insecurity, and there are many things. I had a meeting today with someone on staff. There are many things that impact housing insecurity,
Mhm,
and so we address housing insecurity by providing food for them to eat, a roof over their head. I
mhm,
said, but if that's all we're doing, are we not failing? And somebody looked at me. I said, that's all we're doing. If we're not helping them get to that self-sufficiency,
right.
self stands for strengthening and empowering lives and futures. How
Mhm,
are we working to empower them? I sat down today and I said to one of my members, I said, listen, we have to deal with not just what got them there now, but how to get them from their point to being self-sufficient. So
mhm,
that means we have to deal with the financial literacy in the shelters.
mhm,
That means we have to do with physical and mental health in the shelter.
right.
It means we have to do with substance use disorder in the shelter. It means we have to deal with economic empowerment through employment in the shelter. I said, until we've done that, then we haven't successfully helped people. They
Mhm,
looked at me. I said, the goal is to have people not in our shelter. They looked at me. I say the goal
mhm,
is to have them
mhm.
not in the shelter. I said, no, that is the goal. Because when we've done that, it just means we develop alternative ways to provide affordable housing. I said, the goal really is
That's right.
not to have people unhoused. And they look at me, somebody says, you have lofty goals. My team say, they say that sometimes. Dr. Dash has lofty goals. I said, I know what we can do. We purpose to do it and work together. I
And that's what we should be doing, right? Like everyone should be working themselves out of a job, essentially. That's
That's what I said.
exactly what we
They
should
looked
be
at me.
doing.
I said, the goal is, they looked at me. I said, the goal is not to just have shelters. That's not the goal. The
Mm,
goal is to get people out of our shelters because then we've done something. We've really lived up to what Dr. Otley started to
mm,
empower people,
mhm,
live their best lives. People use that phrase all the time, but what does that look like? It doesn't look the same for everybody. So
mhm,
for you, it might look different than it looks for me, but I have to help provide the tools to get you there. And if we're not doing that, then we're failing. And I tell people all the time, if we're just housing you, then we're failing you.
right,
I
right.
don't know my team likes that, but I'm like, why not? because
Right,
we're just housing you to come back tomorrow and do the same thing. But
right.
if I provide you the tools you need to leave us and get
Mhm.
stable housing, then we progressed you from when we met you.
Right.
It is a challenge. I don't pretend it's not. People have many other issues that they're dealing with or not dealing with. So
Mhm.
it becomes, how do we get them the support to deal with it?
Mhm.
They will leave us and not return.
Yeah.
That's my goal. That's my assignment.
And I appreciate your holistic view, right? Like you're thinking about all the things to help support people to go out on their own and then stay out, right? And to thrive. And so I think that that's the goal that I think all of us try to work towards. And we should be, right? We should be working ourselves out of jobs and then working into the way in which we prevent people from coming into systems and keep people, right, in communities and feeling empowered. So can you talk a little bit about what you're looking forward to in the coming year? I heard you mention housing as one of the pieces. What are some other things that you're looking for in the next 12 months?
Well, that was one of the things. Another thing, we're having our first gala.
Okay, okay.
We have other youth services and programming we're seeking funding for, but we're going to have a gala. So November 16th of 2024, we're going to have a gala. And we're going to bring all of our program partners in the community together, along with our participants. We're going to have our participants there. And we're going to talk about and work as a collective body, ways to empower and support our participants and ways to support young people in the community. So that's one of the things, in addition to some other youth programming that we are looking for funding and believing doors are going to be open. People ask me all the time. I said, I get the title of CEO, but I'm a social worker.
Mhm, mhm.
I'm a social worker. So when I talk to my team, I engage my team, I come from that place. I am a social worker. I believe that we're here to help people.
Right.
So for me, it's not about just doing a job, it's creating a difference. And so I
Mhm,
tell people all the time that when you see me, when I talk to you, when I talk to my teams, I'm not the CEO. I get who I am. I get the business aspect every day, all day. I handle business. But I tell them, understand why we're here. We're here to serve. And
right.
if we're not serving, then what are we doing? So
Mhm,
I'm a social worker. So the social worker looks at ways to sit down with our team to create opportunities to help people,
mhm,
get from where they are. Because I explained, we had new staff come today and I talk to them. I
mhm,
like to talk to new staff when they're hired. I tell them who we are and what we do, but I explain the mission. I explain the assignment. I tell them there are going to be good days and I tell you there will be bad days. But I
right.
explain to them the difference they make in the lives of those we serve. I
Mhm,
explain to them that at a minimum, respect to everyone is given. It's the humanity that we all deserve. And I
mhm,
talk about serving. And when they always look at me, they go, well, you're the CEO. I am, but I'm a social worker.
mhm.
So I keep that to heart. So some of the things we're looking for, we're looking forward to our gala.
Okay.
November 16th, 2024, we will get dressed for a cause. And we will help support programming for those in our shelters who need support.
Yeah, and so looking forward to that gala and want to ask in sort of that same spirit, what are ways that people can support self? Are there ways that people can donate or are there ways that people can volunteer with self?
Yes, there are. So you can go to our website and donate. You can go to Self Incorp, SELFINCORP.org, selfincorp.org. You can
Mhm,
click that donate button. You can
mhm.
also volunteer on there. There's a place to give your information and volunteer. Also, if you'd like to donate items, you can
Oh,
likewise there are actually links on there. We still need some things for our young people who are living in their own apartments that we're
okay.
placing. We still need sheets. We still need
Mm,
pots and pans. We need things for them to move into the households. All those things aren't covered through the grant. So these are some of the things we're seeking funding for other avenues that once we get them housed, we can get
mhm,
the things they need in their place. So there are links on our website for Amazon, Walmart. We have wish lists up, but you can go on the wish list and donate whatever you like, or you can contact us. People drop stuff off at the office. We're
mm.
downtown at 15th of Walnut. You likewise can go to our website, selfincorp.org, and drop off things you'd like to donate. Reach out to us and we'll make sure we connect with you. So those are some of the ways that you can donate.
That's really wonderful.
Volunteer.
Tell me about that. Tell me a bit more about volunteering. What does someone do when they are volunteer at self?
So if someone wants to volunteer, it depends. We have some volunteers who actually work one-on-one with the participants. All
Okay.
the volunteers have to go through training. We have volunteers. Again, we have a food cupboard. People come and help with the food cupboard. The
Okay.
food cupboard, we give food to the community. So if you like to volunteer for that, you likewise would go on to our website and there's a form to click to volunteer. And those are some of the ways that you can volunteer and work with our participants and work with us in the community. And if there are other opportunities, I tell people, reach out, let us know what it is you'd like to do. See how we can work together. Everything is not always set in stone, meaning there may be other opportunities that we haven't thought about that you'd like to present.
Mhm,
We're going to have the conversation and see how we can work together, because it's very important that we work together as a community. That's
Right.
very important.
Right, right. And the food cupboard is new to me as well. I didn't realize that Self was doing that. So you're not only engaging people that are experiencing homelessness, but folks within the community that might be food insecure. So I think that that scope is really important. And I hope that it prevents people from having to come into shelter when some of those social determinant needs are met. So that's really wonderful to hear sort of the bigger footprint that you all have and how you are providing a diversity of resources. Really excited too that you said that folks can donate items. So I think that folks watching this, please, please, please donate items to Self. I think this is a wonderful opportunity. People think about this every year, like when kids are going away to school or to college. So would love to see folks start to think about Self as one of those places to donate to when that time comes around. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for
You're
letting us
welcome.
learn so much more about Self. It was wonderful to hear, Dr. Dash. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Just reach out. Self is here. We've been here for over 40 years. We would love to partner with you in the community. We would love to talk about how we can work together to support not just young people. I talk about young people. We have men and women of all ages in our shelter system who need your support. We would love to talk about how we can work together to help address their needs and to help get them out of our shelters into a house of their own.
Mhm.
So we love to find partners who are willing to work with us.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Dash. And we'll
Thank you.
include all this information in the notes so that people can follow up with you. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you and have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.